What else?
Okay, so the price at which we agree to sell or buy,
Default.
what is it known as?
It is called a strike price. Strike price.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
correct. Correct, Ayush. What is the price as of today called?
Spot price.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. The date on which the contract will be executed, say 21st of September 2020. What is 2020?
Matured price. Matured price.
Sorry?
It's
The
called a
contract will
settlement
be
date.
executed on 21st of September 2020. What is that 21st of September 2020 known as?
It's a settlement date or like an expiry
Settlement.
date of the contract.
Settlement price. Yeah.
Yeah, expiry date is the right word, right? So we use the word expiry date. Yeah, I think these are the three key terms. Any other terms you guys can think of?
Just one more thing I would like to add, like in forwards contract, it is fully customizable. Like it's based on trust between two parties, so they can customize it
Mhm.
as they want. I think
Yeah.
this was one small term missing.
And defaulter risk is high in forwards, right? Whereas in futures you have very limited risk. Not
Correct. Correct. Yes. So it is customizable and the risk of default is high. Okay. So we'll come to the risks. So first, let's talk about the features of forwards. So the contract is fully customizable. What else? What are the other features of forwards? Unique features of forwards not found in other contracts. And guys who are new like Som or Ankit, I can see, who have not attended this session, please ask questions. Okay, that is why I'm doing the revision for you guys only. So it is a good revision for the guys who attended also to refresh their concept, and it is a good revision for you guys to grab the concepts. And we had forgotten to stop the recording, start the recording. So I have started now. So we have missed the first 10 odd minutes of the recording. So go on. Yeah. So what are the other features of forward? So it is customizable. It is between two parties. What else?
one more disadvantage of the future would be uh, higher leverage issues. For example, the price can vary daily basis, so a rapid fluctuation can happen in the future prices. That's a disadvantage for me.
Okay. No, don't go to future. First, stay with forwards. Features of forwards. Okay, that's it. Okay, fine. So now let's talk about what are the limitations of a forward contract. What are the risks? Go on, guys. There are what, 6, 7 of you. One risk.
I think the first risk is counterparty risk. Since it's an agreement between two people, anyone can break the contract. Like since there is no regulation, no regulatory body to keep an eye on both of them, so anyone can break the contract at any time. So that's the biggest risk, I guess. And
Correct,
second
right?
risk,
So not at any time, right? It will probably be on the expiry date. So one of the parties fails to fulfill its obligation. So either the buyer fails to pay up the remaining amount if he is probably getting. So for example, if the trade is done at 1 lakh kgs at 50 rupees, so 50 lakhs, and he has given the initial margin of 10 lakhs, but now the spot price is 20 rupees. So he can he can buy from the market that 1 lakh kg for 20 lakh rupees. And additional 10 lakh rupees he will lose. So total for him is 30 lakhs. So still he will make a profit of 20 lakhs. So in that case, the buyer can forfeit the contract on the day of expiry. Similarly, the seller can do reverse. If the spot price goes up to 100, he can sell that 1 lakh in the market for 1 crore. So he would not fulfill that obligation, and he may just go ahead and return that 10 lakhs to the buyer saying, boss, take back your 10 lakhs, but I'm not selling this to you at this price anymore. So from both sides, you can see non-fulfillment of the contract on the expiry date, not in between, because they will probably wait for that day and see how much they are winning or losing. Okay, so that is definitely there. And you mentioned the term counterparty risk, Ayush. So do you want to talk a little bit about counterparty risk?
As far as I understood, counterparty risk is like when either of the two parties, because there are two parties, one is the buyer and one is the seller. So when they don't fulfill their obligation, it's counterparty risk. That's what I understood.
Which is correct, which is absolutely correct. So Ankit, Som, Vaibhav just joined. Is this concept clear to you guys? Question?
Yes, Nishant, the trade point is clear, but I little bit want to know about the derivative product. If you can little bit brief or give brief about the derivative. What is exactly the derivative? I didn't get it.
So see, a derivative derives its value from an underlying asset. So for example, I could create a derivative on a stock. So say Infosys. So Infosys share is traded on the market and current price is 1000 rupees. Now from the Infosys share, I can derive another product which is known as a Infosys future, which is not the share directly, and it is not issued by the company Infosys. It is basically it is basically it is basically a bet that what will happen to the price of Infosys share in a month's time or 3 months time, in a very simple way, whether it will go up or down. And then I create different contracts on that. So that is what is a derivative. So a derivative, I think Ayush has written it very correctly. It is not a tangible thing. So there is no asset. So even share today is not tangible. It's in demat form. But think of it. Think of your laptop. You have a laptop that you bought for 30,000 rupees, but then you want to bet what will be the price of the laptop 3 months from now. It will go up or down, and you want to trade on it. So you create a product which is known as a laptop derivative. So it is just in the air. There is no, it does not exist. It is just a bet.
Okay.
Is this clear?
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
able to find a simpler example, because I think explaining the basic concept of derivative is tough. Somebody else wants to go at it, make it more easier for Ankit and Som and Vaibhav maybe. Ishwar, Nimit, Kunal, any of you wants to take a shot? Siddharth.
Yeah, I can probably help here a bit. So basically, the derivative was not derivative before. It was all simply the forward contract when it started up. What does that mean is, I want to hedge my risk of coming future, right? Which people just explained that, let's say, currently it's a month of June, and in 3 or 4 months, Diwali is coming up. So let's take an example of a sweets merchant, right? Mithai wale ki shop, the sweet merchant. He Sweet shop, not the sweet merchant, it's the sweet shop. So he knows that during the time of Diwali, there would be a very high demand of the sweets in the market. So he wants to secure the supply of sugar in the month of Diwali. So what he'll gonna do is that he'll going to contact the sugar merchant and say that, hey boss, I would be needing X kg of sugar in the month of let's say October or November, whenever the Diwali is, and I want to secure the supply of that sugar now itself, rather than going with the risk of whether I will be getting the sugar or not, or whether the price of the sugar will be so high that I will not be able to buy it up. So he goes to the merchant, sugar merchant, and then asks that, okay, I will be needing 100 kg of sugars in month of October. Then that is basically was the primary need of creating this derivative market. And then again, since the sweet shopper was the first party, another party is the sugar merchant. So now sugar merchant, guys, if you are not speaking, can you please go on mute? I'm hearing my own voice back. Vaibhav Kshatri, can you please go on mute? Okay. Yeah. So the another party was this sugar merchant. Now he's only dealing in the sugar. He thinks that, okay, my current price is XYZ, and I think that probably in future I may not get this price, or let's say that even if I get this price, I'm not sure whether I will be able to sell it off or not. So he will go in contract with that sweets shop guy that, okay, I will supply you 100 kg of sugar at the month of October at so and so price. So that's how this derivative or the forward contract started to exist to hedge the risk of the business. But now it has been converted into something else, which is a gambling game. We call it as, and this is all because of XYZ reasons, which I don't want to talk over here. But that was the whole idea of creating these forward contracts and then these derivative products. And then again, there were some pros and cons of the forward contracts. That's why the future came in. Then after that there were few negatives of futures. That's why options came in, and then likewise swaps and stuff like that. Does it give you a brief background of why these were created and what is derivatives? Yes, no, maybe. Ankit, I think that was your question, right?
Yes. Right. I have understood.
Okay. Back to you, Nishant.
Okay, so we were talking about limitations of forward contracts, right? So I think Ayush mentioned one is counterparty risk. What else? And I think you explained what is counterparty risk. What else?
I think second could be there are no common standards in a forward contract. Hello? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, Ayush, that is correct. So can you elaborate on that as well now?
Okay, so like since there is no regulatory body, like common standards, like the quantity is not fixed. Like in futures contract, they have standardized contracts of like 1,000 kgs. For example, we saw the example of sugar merchant and the sweet shop. There are no standardized contracts here. Like you can like trade 10 kgs or 100 kgs or 1,000 kgs, and there is no regulatory body to control this. So that's a risk.
Okay. What else?
I think there is one more. I think maybe we can skip it like this. It's not traded in the open market. It will be traded in buyer and seller. So since it's not traded in the open market, so you need to sell it to this buyer itself. So you don't be able to, if seller is not, sorry, if the buyer is not willing to buy, then you can't sell it to other guys. So when you have a third party who can engage in selling in between you, we can find another buyer. Does it make
Correct.
sense?
So what is it known as in the market, Ranjit? What is the word for it? You have explained correctly, but what is it known as? Somebody else wants to answer this?
Is it the liquidity risk?
Yes, that's right.
No.
Correct. Who's this?
This is me,
Who
Ayush.
answered it? Correct, Ayush. Yeah. So this is known as liquidity risk, right? So basically, can one of you explain liquidity risk in detail? This is a very important concept in the world of finance, not just applicable to derivatives. So the recent scandal that we had of Franklin Templeton is a classic case of liquidity risk. So maybe if somebody wants to talk about that. Also, the ILFS case that we had about a year or 1.5 years back is again a case of liquidity risk. The similar thing happened in the 2008 financial crisis. It was a case of liquidity risk. So somebody wants to talk about, so it was a lot of things, but liquidity risk was also one very important factor. I mean, even in today's world, right? So the Federal Reserve is buying even junk bonds in the US. So that is again because of the liquidity risk. So if somebody can talk about liquidity risk, it is a very, very important concept in finance, applicable to all the asset classes, which is equities, derivatives, fixed income, currencies, and commodities. Okay, extremely widely applicable.
Nishant, maybe I can try. I am not pretty confident, but I might do a mistake. Please correct me if I am wrong. For example,
Sure. So others will add up. Go on.
for example, investor has invested some. He has given a contract saying that go ahead with something to grow, or there's something to grow a crop, and the investor, he will say that I don't want to finance your project. I don't need a products anymore. So the liquidity, the flow of money will be cut. This is what the risk can happen in forward contract. He can ditch. He will say that I don't want to buy anymore. This is the risk, right? Investor can cancel out his position. This is what I'm saying.
I think it you can I think you can improve on that by saying that for example if you're holding a product and if you want to sell it, there will be no buyers basically, so you can't offload your product. Essentially there's a mismatch between the buyers and sellers, and so the asset becomes illiquid. It means there is no more a market for that product. Does anybody want to add on that?
It's your ability to meet cash and any collateral obligations without having any losses.
Yeah, so very valid points. I think Ishwar summed it up very well. So basically, whenever you have any asset, be it a house, be it a share, be it anything, when you want to sell it, you should be able to sell it, which means the market needs a large number of buyers and sellers. So after a long time, after 10 odd years, I've started trading very heavily these days, without leverage, of course, as I keep saying, but I'm doing only cash and carry. So I am trading only in counters where the daily volume is around 10 crore shares, and I'm doing what, 1,000, 2,000, maybe 5,000 shares at max. So basically, when the volume is 10 crores, I know that any moment I want to sell, I can sell it. So usually the counters that I'm dealing with has a volume of about 5-10,000 every second. So that is how liquid it is. On the other hand, today I own a few flats in Bangalore. If I want to sell them, that market is not liquid. Just to sell one flat, which I bought in 2005, which my family bought rather, it will take me 1 year, maybe 2 years to get the right price. So basically the ability to sell any asset, and Kunal added a very valid point. See, you can always sell an asset at throwaway prices. So the house that I want to sell, I can always reduce the price by 30% and sell it. But that's not the point. I should be able to sell it at a fair price in a very matter of seconds or days. And that is what
At
liquidity comes
minimum,
in.
the same price you bought it or higher? I mean, without facing losses.
Loss is also fine. So liquidity is not so much to do with loss or profit, Kunal, because the asset price can move up or down, right? So a share price can go up or down, but it is the ability to liquidate your position. It's the ability to get out of that position. Because share, as I have quoted various times, I will quote it again. All investments are subject to market risk. So the market can move up or down, and market belongs to no one. Market is market. Market does what market wants, right? So liquidity is basically the ability to get out of a position in a very short period of time and having enough volumes. So in a simple example like I gave, like for a share, if there are 10 crore shares traded every day or 20 crore shares traded every day, you would call that a liquid counter. Whereas if there are only 50,000 shares every day, then you know that it's not such a liquid counter. Is this clear to everyone? If there are questions, please ask, because these are the fundamentals of finance. If you don't understand them, you will never be able to read pages of Economic Times or articles, because these terms will be thrown around a lot of the times. And once your basics are right, then you can build pillars on that. No questions, so I can assume that everyone is clear. Fine. So yeah, I think we covered forwards. So then what product was created because of the limitations of forward? And I would ask people who have not spoken to speak up. So which means Ayush, Nimit and Ishwar, don't speak up. Ranjit and Kunal also a little less. So others, maybe Vaibhav, Siddharth, and yeah, maybe if you guys can talk about futures a little bit. Oh, sorry, what product was created because of the limitation of forward? I kind of answered it, but yeah, and then talk about that product a little bit.
Futures.
Yeah. So Siddharth, Vaibhav, you want to go? No. Okay. Then open for all. Anyone who wants to go? So Ranjit answered it. It's futures. So talk a little bit about futures contract. What are they, and what features they have?
Basically, whatever the limitations we add in a forwards, in order to fulfill the gaps, in futures standardized contract was introduced, and futures can be traded.
Ranjit, once again, one by one. Okay, so one point at a time. So then in forward, it was customized contract. So futures moved to a standardized contract. Fair point. What is the next one?
Shall I go ahead or?
No, let somebody else do, na? Yeah, so one person pick it up, anyone.
Yeah, so there is a broker in a futures contract. Is it true? Like there's like a in between party that takes care of the trade between the two?
Correct. And what is that party which guarantees the contract?
It's a bank or a broker. I don't know.
No, it's not the bank or the broker. There is a buyer and a seller. In a forward contract also there was a buyer and a seller. In between there is a very important party, right? So which is that party? It's not a bank or a broker. What is it known as?
The clearinghouse.
No.
Stock exchange, maybe.
Yeah, correct, right? It's the exchange. It's now traded on the exchange. Yeah. So the exchange will ensure that the contract is fulfilled. And then clearing house, the broker, everybody works with the exchange. But basically the contract is fulfilled by the exchange. And the exchange has very heavy penalties on the party which defaults. They are mostly banned from trading for 10 years or so. So it is very, very difficult to default on a futures contract unless you want to be banned. So it's the exchange. Fair point. So standardized product, exchange to guarantee the contract. So that takes care of your counterparty risk. That takes care of your standardized product. Yeah, so standardized product. What was the other risk we talked about? Come on, guys, you attended the session, right? So Ranjit made a point, Kunal made a point, Vaibhav made a point. Somebody else now. Third one
So
is
just
easy.
so just I'll go ahead with this. The liquidity risk is eliminated here because since it's not entirely eliminated, it's reduced. Like so, since it's traded on a exchange, so it's a kind of open market. So you can sell your product to multiple buyers. Like so.
Yeah, it's actually eliminated, Ayush. So if you're trading with reasonable futures, so for example, say you are trading in Infosys futures, and the spot price is at 1000. If you are trading with futures with a strike price of say 1050 or so, the volumes are very high. So especially for the nearest month expiry. So if you are trading for a June futures or July futures, I don't know what is the current policy in the NSE. Earlier it used to be the last Thursday of every month, and it used to be monthly expiry. Now they have also introduced weekly expiry. So which means that next Thursday will be one expiry, and after that, so one Thursday from now, so the next Thursday is 25th of June. So if you are trading in 25th of June or 2nd of July futures, the volumes are very high. So you will not get stuck. You can easily liquidate your position. So liquidity risk is taken care of. So product is standardized. Counterparty risk is eliminated because exchange guarantees it. There is almost zero liquidity risk, especially in most popular stocks and all. So 3 things. Anything else? Any other special features of futures?
Another just one more key point was the initial upfront payment is a bit high. Like in forwards, we have like 5%, 5 to 10% of initial margin, but in futures we have somewhere around 20 to 25% of initial upfront payment.
Yeah, but that is not from where you got that forward. It is only 5 or 10%. It is customized, right? Sometimes I can ask 30% also advance.
Okay.
So in forward, there is no standard limit. In futures, based on the liquidity, based on the volumes, the exchange decides. So earlier for Nifty, it used to be, again, these are 10-year-old data because I haven't been trading a lot for last 10 years. But somebody can Google it up. It used to be 12 or 13% for Nifty, the margin. Whereas for some individual stocks, it used to go up to 20 to 25% or 30% also. So that initial margin is same for forward and future. That's not a key differentiator between the two. Cool. I think, yeah, so good, nicely covered. Now, what are the limitations? What are the limitations of a futures contract?
Well, sorry for the interruption, but before the limitation, can I just ask one small question? That what exactly is traded in futures? Is it the commodity or the price of the commodity? Does it change, or is it the price of the contract between the two parties? Or I mean, is the contract sold to another party? Then who takes care of the obligations then?
Means I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, so for example, if two parties do a future contract, and then they can, like, this contract can be traded in the stock, like in the stock exchange. So then the price of the contract will fluctuate. So for example, if the price of the contract goes up or down, and so my point is that if X has a contract with Y, and then Z wants to buy the contract or get into the contract, then how does the relationship between X, Y, and Z take care in the stock exchange?
Yeah, that's very simple, right? So for example, there is a future contract for Infosys. Okay, say current price of Infosys is 1000 rupees, which is the spot price. And the future price is 1050, which means the market expects that the price of Infosys will go up by 50 rupees in the next 1 month. and say the expiry date is 31st of July next month, or say 30th of June. Let's take easy example. 30th of June is the expiry day, so 9 days to go. Now I bought it at 1000 and X bought it at 1000 and Y sold it at 1000. Is that clear to you?
Yeah, so you bought it at 1000 and you made the contract for 1050.
Okay. And as no, sorry, not at 1000. The future contract was bought at 1050. Correct. So now in futures, as we have discussed, there is always a lot size. You cannot trade in one share. So say the lot size is 100 for this example. So the contract value is 1050 into 100, which comes to 1 lakh, and 50 into 100 कितना हो गया 5000. So 1,05,000 is the contract value. Now say the initial margin is 20%, so X paid to Y 21,000. It's actually settled by the exchange, so yeah, so it's paid to the broker, whatever. So with me till here?
Yeah.
Okay. Now say tomorrow the price goes up in the spot market from 1000 to 1010. So if the price goes up, the buyer benefits. If the price goes down, the seller benefits. Because the buyer is assuming that the price will go to 1050. That is why he's, or in fact, he is assuming that the price will cross 1050 so that he can buy it at that. Future means what? On that day, I can buy it at 1050. I'm locking in the purchase price. So on 30th of June, only if the spot price crosses 1050, I'll be at a profit. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So say on Monday, which is 22nd of June, the price in the spot market moves from 1000 to 1020. So automatically in the futures market also, the price will move from 1050 to something, maybe 1055 or 1060. It need not be directly proportional. So if the spot price moves by 30, the future price may not move by 20 exactly. It will move by 15 or 10 or whatever, but it will definitely move.
Okay.
So that, say it moves by 10. So 10 into 100,000 is my profit for that day, for Monday.
Yeah, but in that case, when the price of the contract will increase, then
Yeah.
Sorry. Please go ahead.
So this is between X and Y, right? So this is contract is now as an X, I'm at profit of 1000, right? Now I want to get out. So I will just go ahead and sell it to Z. That's it. So my obligation will be fulfilled and Z will buy it from me. So in this case, I don't directly sell it to Z. I sell it in the market. Yeah, basically you do a trade. You never know who's buying from whom. The exchange takes care of it in a net settlement basis. But basically I will square off my position. So I had bought it by paying 1,05,000. 1,05,000 was my contract value. I had paid bought it by paying 21,000 as the premium. Now I will sell it for 1,06,000. So my broker will return me my initial margin of 21,000 plus my profit of 1,000. So 22,000 मुझे आ जाएगा. Is this clear to you?
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Similarly, if the seller wants to swipe out on Monday, he has already lost $1,000. So he must have paid a margin of same 21,000. So his broker will deduct his loss of 1,000 and return him 20,000. So you basically square off. So if you have bought it, you sell it. If you have sold it, you buy it back. And the difference is your profit or loss based on which way the market moved.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
And as I said, right, this is a zero-sum game. So which means that before 30th, you have to do something. You have to square it off. It is not ki, arey, I will hold it. No. You have to square it off and then roll it over to the next month still. But still, either loss लगेगा. मतलब rollover फिर और एक वो complex terms है. I don't want to get into all that. But basically, at some point, you will have to book the losses if you keep making wrong bets. Whereas in the equities, this risk is not there. क्योंकि there is no concept of expiry. खरीद लिया share रखे रहो 5 साल तक. अभी नहीं तो 2 साल बाद बढ़ेगा if it's a good company. Questions, doubts? So Ankit, Som, for you guys, is this concept clear? Som,
Yes, Nishant.
Vaibhav
Any
also.
doubt will be there, I will ask you on the group. Sir.
Okay. Cool then. So I didn't understand the question, Siddharth. Are you not? Can you not speak? Like, audio is not there. The risk is not at all hedged, right? To hedge the risk, you need to buy the spot also. For example, or sell the spot, depends. So if I'm selling an Infosys future, I can buy the spot, which means I will buy, which means I can buy. I can buy the Infosys share in the spot market at 1,000 rupees and then sell the future. So that is how you can hedge it. So that is what Nimit was saying when he meant that hedging means that you only trade in a futures market, in the derivatives market for products that you already own. So basically you have a fear that Infosys price may go down and you are holding it, you already bought it at $1,000, so you get into a future contract to fix your selling price as 1,050. You are kind of hedging your bet. That was I will sell it at 1,050 only. So that you can do via futures or options. So that is how you hedge your bets. And that is how it was created initially, but now the volumes have gone so high that basically people are doing naked futures and options trading, which has made it a very, very dangerous game. Fine. So yeah, I think that kind of covers forwards and futures. I'll leave it to the group for a couple of minutes if anyone wants to add anything or ask any questions or any thoughts, opinions, etc. Over to you guys, Ishwar, Nimit, if you guys want to add something. Ishwar, Nimit, Kunal, Ranjit, you guys want to add something?
I think we have covered pretty much everything forwards and futures perspective. Sorry, I was a little bit distracted for a few minutes. I'm not sure whether we discussed about the risk or let's say the negatives of.
Nimit, your voice is very low.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, slightly better. Yeah.
Okay. I was asking. I don't know whether we just talked about the.
Again, it's very feeble. Little louder.
Strange. What's happening? Is it okay now?
Good now.
Okay. I was saying that I'm not sure whether we talked about the negative side of futures or not. I mean, if you have covered it up, that's okay. If you're not, then we can talk about that.
Sure, you can go on, Nimit.
Okay. Sure. So after this, we know that why future came in because of the negative, few negatives of the forwards, like counterparty risk, low liquidity, highly customized, there was no standards. But similarly, future also has some negative sides, there is a high initial investments required, which is called as the margin money. As Nishant was talking about it, 10 years back it could be like 10 or 12% for an Infosys share. It can be now 20-25%. So there is a high initial investment required to get into the future contracts, and probably people like the retail investor like you and me will not be able to have such kind of high investments. So that was one of the negative side of future contracts. Another one is there is an obligation on both buyer and seller to close that contract, right? I mean, if a buyer has bought this contract and seller has sold the contract, get into a contract, they have this obligation to close the contract on the future date. that is another, let's say, the negative side of futures. That were and for these negative sides, the options were introduced to take care of these negatives.
Cool. Thanks, Nimit. Anyone else wants to add something? Okay, no. So fine. So we will move on to options. So as Nimit rightly covered, there are few challenges of a futures contract, and that is what led to the creation of a options contract. So we moved from so basically the history of derivatives is forwards, then futures, then options. Forwards have been traded for I don't know how long, but probably thousands of years. Futures, probably few hundred years. I think the first exchanges were set up. Chicago Mercantile Exchange was probably the first one, or the CBOE. I think they're 100 plus years old. Let me quickly check that. So in the meantime, maybe if one of you wants to add a little bit more about options, maybe. So it says it is the Dojima Rice Exchange in Japan in 1710 is the oldest futures exchange. So about 300 years plus. Cool. So we can move on to options. So maybe somebody can talk about options. We only have 5 minutes, so we may not be able to complete it. But yeah, Ayush or Ranjit or Vaibhav or Nimit or Ishwar, any one of you wants to talk about options? Over to you guys.
So I can take this. Options are basically a form of derivatives which gives the owner the right, but not the obligation, the underlying asset.
Correct. So not the owner issuer, you would probably call it the buyer of the contract. So buyer of a contract in an options contract gets the right, but not the obligation to fulfill the contract.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get into the different types of contract, so the buyer of the contract gets a right, but not the obligation. So he has to pay something to the seller. What is it known as?
Premium.
It's a premium. Yeah.
Premium. Okay, correct. And how is the premium calculated? What is the theory of premium?
Premium will be always some kind of percentage out of
Correct,
it's a
correct.
partially paid, I would say.
There is a theory,
On
right?
strike price.
What is it based on?
It's based on strike price, actually. Strike price.
No,
Expired date.
No, that is fine, but it is based on a concept which I taught, right? It is based on a concept and a formula. I have given enough clues.
Nishant, if the expire date is so close, the price will be going down. Right?
Correct. Correct.
So this is one of the factor.
That is a factor that is influencing the price, right?
You are looking forward for the terminology. Greeks or what? You're looking
No,
for
no, there is
for the terminal.
yes, yes. No, so Ranjit, go on mute. Somebody else can answer. So what is the option pricing based on? What is the theory it is based on? I discussed at length about it. Anyone, guys, please try it. It may be not the right answer, but it's okay. Come on, Nimit, Ayush, koi bhi.
Sorry, Nishant, I don't know the exact formula or the terminology in fact.
Okay. Option pricing is based on what? No one?
It's based on several factors, right? Like for example, the strike price, which gives you the intrinsic value of the asset, and the length of time until the option expires, and maybe also the volatility. So different factors, they're all included in some formula.
Yes, so
I
that
think,
is one
Nishant, it's a
formula,
last.
but it is also based on a
Nishant,
very important concept, right? Yeah.
I think it's last traded price is the one which also factors a lot. What is the
Yeah,
current
these are
price?
all factors. Well said, well said. But I'm asking, what is the concept? The concept is time value of
Is
money.
it the time
The
value?
Black-Scholes. Okay.
So the time value of money is what option pricing is based on. So like Ishwar said, how close we are to expiry, what is the strike price and all of that. But how close we are to expiry is directly related to time value of money. So very, very important. So that is how options are priced based on time value of money. So the closer you are to expiry, the higher your premium becomes, higher or lower, and much more volatile. And also obviously the share price volatility and all. And then all of this is mixed together and put into a formula known as which formula, Kunal? I think you mentioned it. What is it known as?
Black-Scholes.
So the Black-Scholes formula. So I'm assuming at least many of you watch cricket. I don't watch. I don't know of other sport that use something like that. But in cricket, you have Duckworth-Lewis, right? So Duckworth and Lewis are two mathematicians. Similarly, I think there were two mathematicians. I don't remember their full name, but it's probably their surnames were Black and Scholes. And Scholes, SCH means it's probably a German.
Yeah.
So
German, I
the
think,
Black-Scholes formula is what is used to calculate option pricing. And like Ishwar rightly mentioned, it will take into account your expiry date, how far you are from expiry date, your volatility of the stock, your strike price. These will be the key factors while determining how liquid the stock is. That is also important. These key factors will be included to calculate the Black-Scholes formula. Now, in the earlier days, you might have to learn it. Now there are models available. You just put in the parameters, strike price, expiry date, and the model will throw up your option price. Okay, we are on time. I have a lot of other engagements today, so I will be closing the call now. So I hope the session was useful. And yeah, any questions, please ask. So next session, I will then move on to swaps. So this was a revision. So I think good inputs. Some of you have got the concepts really well. Some of you need to do a little revision. So go over today's session, recorded session, use that to your advantage. Read a little bit more and become more confident, because this is a very complex topic. So it's okay. You will need a few sessions to be really expert in this. But well done. It was good. I got some very good answers. So happy that people have understood the concept quite well. Okay. Thank you guys. I have to check out now. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Nishant.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Nishant.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.